Teachers are next in line for a vaccine with around 500,000 Johnson & Johnson doses secured for them. However, the rollout is dependent on authorization from the Food and Drug Administration in the United States. Let's get some reaction now from Basil Manuel, Executive Director of the National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa. Basil, very good afternoon. The plan is obviously welcome news, I'd like to think.
Absolutely, Hugo. Good afternoon. It is welcome. Of course, we are a little stressed at the moment, a little concerned, because there are these delays from the FDA. We knew from the very outset that it's contingent on their approval for the release of the vaccines, but we live in eternal hope.
Now, if everything does go according to plan, when is it expected to happen?
Hugo, actually it was expected to happen a week ago already, but we've waited for a week, so there are 2 weeks left, and that of course is also coincides with the expiry of these vaccines. So we've got to get them here as soon as possible, and we sincerely hope that by the weekend the FDA would do something. There's no news other than us having to wait for the FDA to give approval for the release. We know that there is transport on standby to bring them to South Africa. We know that provinces are very busy working to get all the logistics sorted out so that when they arrive, the rollout happens seamlessly. And because you can't only start planning when these vaccines arrive. So there's a lot being done. However, we can only really know that it's happening when once those vaccines are on the plane on their way here.
Now, how many teachers are we talking about?
Hugo, there are 430,000 teachers. But, of course, we are targeting the over 40s. And then there are not only teachers, but also the education workers. Because, remember, everybody in a school setup has to be looked at. And there are education workers, and then, of course, as the next step, this step first, just the state schools, or rather the public schools by their proper name, and then the private schools or the independent schools. So the 500,000 doses ought to be enough, because remember there will also be people who are anti-vaxxers and who don't want to take it, although we are encouraging everybody to queue up to take this. I may add that we as teacher unions, NAPTOSA together with other unions, have done a survey recently, and the attitudes towards the vaccine have changed remarkably. We are now sitting at almost 80%, 75% clearly saying they are going to take the vaccine, and some people saying, well, I'm still making up my mind. If we add those in, we are well above the 80% mark, which is so gratifying and promising. But it's only really important if the vaccines arrive.
Now take us through the envisioned rollout. Obviously the priority is on teachers that are 40 and older. How will that work for that grouping and then for the latter grouping?
Hugo, the way we've been led to understand, every province is now getting people to sign up consent forms, etc. Teachers and education workers will automatically be uploaded onto the system because they don't have to actually register themselves. We have all their data as the department. And then, of course, there are those governing body employees where the process is slightly different, the information is being sought and then. When once that is done and the vaccines arrive, the rollout begins and people will be designated to areas where they need to go for the vaccine. And it will go school by school because you can't disrupt part of a school. The school must go and then get it done, and the disruption will be minimal. If we had time, we would have said ideally during the holidays, ideally over the weekend, but that is not going to be possible with this very limited window period. And we hope that it will be seamless. And of course, all the education department officials are included, as well as, of course, the teacher union officials, because they are working in the same group with the same people.
Now, Basil, take us through the impact that COVID has had on teachers. Have any fallen ill? Have you lost any teaching staff?
I will talk about this here. Remember that when we started the year off, we had lost about 1,300 teachers to COVID in the second wave. And that had a devastating impact on schools. Learners that were impacted were less severely impacted, and the numbers were relatively limited. What is different this time is that we've seen a lot of high school learners being impacted on. But of course, we are now also talking about primary schools returning to school full-time, returning almost, returning from the 26th of July. And when that happens, you must remember that each teacher has actually an impact on about 100 to 150 households, not children, households, children that they interact with that go home. And these are the things that we are concerned about. At the moment, teacher illnesses have not been alarming. There are teachers who have fallen ill. There are more children who have fallen in high schools. And it doesn't matter what the reason for that was. And people have suggested all sorts of things, that it was the sport, that it was this. The reality is these are youngsters. They're social. They are getting out there into the community. And, of course, we have to do far more education to keep them safe. However, being in school is still important because in school there is far more control. So at the moment we are not desperately concerned about schools in terms of dangers. If everybody follows the protocols, NAPTOSA for one is happy that schools will remain safe environments.
Now finally, Basil, before we let you go, are you carrying out any advocacy, obviously, to encourage teachers to be vaccinated? We know that it is not mandatory. The government has said that individuals will not be forced to be vaccinated if they do not want to be vaccinated.
Absolutely. NAPTOSA, together with the other teacher unions, we have a collective advocacy campaign, and that we will be rolling out immediately. But of course, we are sitting with a little bit of a dilemma because we need to know that the vaccines are on their way so that we can encourage more. But over and above that, we have been out there saying to teachers, where do you believe you are safer, with or without? Secondly, if you have comorbidities, the system can't afford people to be off on comorbidity leave indefinitely. We've got to do something, and if the vaccine is one of the ways to keep you healthier and safer, then this must be it. But certainly, as a collective of unions, we have a major campaign that is going to be encouraging our people to seriously consider standing in the queue for the vaccine.
Basil, I certainly hope that the next time we have this conversation, those more than 400,000 teachers will have been vaccinated. Thank you for your time this afternoon. Basil Manuel, Executive Director of the National Professional Teachers Organisation of South Africa.